Thorny, as we venture into the R&R, two truths are consistent. We love our dear Montana State, and we love great beer. And you know who else feels the same? Jeremiah Johnson Brewing. Brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, Jeremiah Johnson takes Montana's finest ingredients to craft some of Montana's favorite beers. And now, Jeremiah Johnson's second tap room is open in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Their Citra IPA is probably one of my favorites. But we all know, Thorny, you're not the hop lover I am. You're more of a mountain man Scotch ale.
Well, Foley, I'm certainly not a mountain man, but you are right. I do love their Mountain Man Scotch Ale. But come game day, you and I are both cracking their Golden Bobcat Pale Ale. So when you're looking for a quality craft beer brewed with Montana roots, a relaxing tap room, or just a six-pack to take to your favorite Bobcat tailgate, Jeremiah Johnson delivers. Make your next beer a Jeremiah Johnson, and as always, go Cats.
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. All right. Welcome back, Bobcat fans, and thanks for joining us on another episode of the R&R Catcast After Dark. We have a special guest on tonight, Shane Driscoll. You might remember him from the Bobcat Outsider a couple years ago when we started this thing. He's still a good buddy of ours. He graciously accepted the invite to come talk Bobcat football tonight. Shane, how are you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks, Foley. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And of course, this is our special quick take episode, the R&R After Dark. So we will give you our gut reaction to the game that just happened against Weber State. We are so pumped to talk about that game. And but first, before we do anything, we start off these episodes with Around the Big Sky. So let's talk about Around the Big Sky. I'll take the first game. I'll just go down my list on the ESPN app. Eastern Washington, holy cow. They took Idaho to the woodshed. Eric Berrier, I think, had 600 yards of passing or something ridiculous like that. They won 71-21 against the Vandals. I know a couple of our friends are calling for Paul Petrino's head over there in Moscow. Dang, that's just a butt whooping. Eastern is looking like a top one. I mean, they're looking unstoppable. And the Cats are playing Eastern in 2 weeks. That's going to be one heck of a game. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, for sure. They're looking like a juggernaut. I honestly thought Idaho just looked strong. The way that they played, it looked kind of like a power type of game that I thought could be a tough matchup. And clearly I was way off. They just didn't have any trouble with them whatsoever.
All right. Well, I'll move on to the next game. The next game was a big surprise for us. The one I'm seeing next is the Montana Sac State game. Stingers up. Holy cow. Troy Taylor goes into Washington Grizzly Stadium and beats the Grizz 28-21. That puts Montana at, what are they right now? 2-1 or they're 4-2 overall, and I think 1-2 in the conference. That's a big surprise given the way the Grizzlies started out.
Yeah, that's a really tough conference start when you have teams that questionably you might have a team or two run the table, but you're probably going to have at least one team that doesn't have any losses. So all of a sudden, you might be completely out of the conference race. But the crazy thing, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the thing that pops out about that game, now Sac State's in the conversation again. All of a sudden, they have momentum, and you look at their schedule in the back half of the schedule, they don't have the toughest teams coming up. They have the Causeway Classic at the very end against UC Davis. But Sac State now is going to be in the conversation for a conference title.
Yeah, and I don't want to go into this for too long, but real quick, I mean, we're not even talking about the fact that we all thought that whole offense was predicated on Kevin Thompson. We thought, well, Kevin Thompson's gone, so we'll start him out in the middle of the pack somewhere. I don't know. Who knows where they'll end up. Well, they didn't miss a beat. They're not even starting a specific guy. They also just lost their All-American running back. And that's not even part of the conversation, right? It's like, wow, these guys are, I mean, they looked really good.
Yeah. Well, definitely will be some more news about that game this coming week. All right, let's keep this moving. Northern Arizona at home took on Southern Utah, and that was a high-scoring affair, 59-35. I honestly, Shane, I'd never know what to think about these two teams. I know Southern Utah, I've never been high on. Northern Arizona does this to me. They are just the roller coaster of teams. They can be super high, they look great, and then some weeks they look terrible.
Yeah, I flipped it on for a little while, and I've watched a little bit of Southern Utah, a little bit of Northern Arizona, and I guess the same thing. I don't know what to think about them. They at times you're like, oh, that looked like a pretty athletic little offensive play these guys put together, and then it's like they just fall apart at times. But I haven't watched a ton of it. But like you said, I just don't know what to think.
Those are games I don't really pay attention to all that much. I mean, we have so much to keep track of, and then when you see Northern Arizona and Southern Utah come up, you're like, well, I'll just look at the stat line later on.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Portland State holding court over in Portland, taking down Idaho State, who's coming to Bozeman next weekend. Idaho State comes off a big win against UC Davis. And then they kind of lay an egg here. Portland State beats them 31-10.
Just makes that UC Davis loss look that much worse.
Right? So let's talk about UC Davis real quick because, it just went final. UC Davis takes down the Fighting McCaffreys 32-3. Man, UNC is just having a tough go. But, I think that's on their head coach and the culture that they have over there. Good for UC Davis. But I didn't think that one was really in jeopardy at all.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So that's around the Big Sky. Our quick takes on those games. Again, Montana State has Idaho State coming back to Bozeman next weekend. So the Bobcats will be home. So let's get into the game that happened on Friday night on ESPNU. The main show, Montana State, number 9 versus Weber State, number 19, the big game that had everybody focusing in because the Cats were going to be, for once, playing a team of substantial, a heavyweight in the Big Sky Conference. And man, did we get a game, a slobber knocker, a defensive fist fight over there. Montana State pulls out the victory, 13-6. Is that right? I didn't even write the score down. I'm ashamed to. Is that right?
13-7.
13-7.
Yeah,
there we go. So we're going to shape our conversations again, just a little bit about the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's get started, Shane. What's your first positive thing that came out from this game?
7 freaking points. 7 freaking points. I mean, and it's one thing when you do that, when you're kind of out there on offense and you're just churning away clock and doing that. But the offense struggled and the defense came up and shut them down for 50 minutes when they were put back out there again and again. And that's the first thing. And it's just you can't overstate what that is in this era of football and a top 20 team. 7 points that's no joke. I mean, Daniel Hardy, 4 sacks. It's insane. Troy is getting straight up dangerous out there. I think people are starting to see him mature and kind of solidify in a way that they've got to be concerned when they see him on the other side of the ball. And then Nails Glessner, as I like to call him, the guy just when you need him, he's going to hit, because that was the difference. He made the difference in the football game, and two field goals, and he made both of them, and that was the whole difference.
Yeah, I like to call him Stones Glessner. Hey, Shane, before we move on, I want to go back to your first point. 7 points. I think Thorny had his bold prediction was the Wildcats would score under 10, and I'm shocked. That was an impressive battle. Stat I got from Colter Nuanez's article said that the Wildcats had 139 of their 269 yards in the first quarter. They had 7 of their first downs out of a total of 13 first downs in the first quarter. When I listened to Tayakata in the post-game presser, he talked about they were running some unbalanced sets that got them off whatever, that first drive, they had some success on them. They came back to the offense, or came back to the sideline, regrouped, put a little bit of, they adjusted for it. And then Montana State's defense just dominated there on out. So, wow. I mean, it was such an impressive performance from our defense. Just quick, because we don't get to talk to you very much. What do you think about our defense in 2021? Maybe compared to maybe 2019?
Yeah, I think 2019 is a really good comparison because we know that was a really good defense. And this defense, I think, is that good. And I mean, you're talking about a guy leaving that was like, I thought he could have gone and played in the NFL. I don't think he got more than a cup of coffee with anybody, Bryce Stirk. But Hardy comes in and replaces him, and I don't think there's been a drop off,
Ooh,
and
no.
it was out of nowhere. Like, who knew that Hardy was going to come from a different position and just be lights out there? But I think that also is a testament to something that is easily overlooked, but Hardy does a good job of remembering to point out, is that it really is a unit. The D-line has to function as a unit. And it really, those other guys, he is in that special position where he's supposed to be the guy getting the sacks. But those other guys are making that happen by collapsing the pocket in the right way. And I just think, starting with that D-line, they're so good. And you lose safeties that you're like, how are you going to possibly replace these guys? And you have this nickel package where all these D-backs are like so freaking good. When you see them hit, you're like, I knew Ty Okada was a good tackler. He's had some but you're like, that guy's the most sure tackler in the whole conference, It's and the way he hits when he does, it's so cool. But no, I think that they're at the top of the conference. I don't think that you can necessarily put anyone ahead of them. Although it'll be good to see them against a team like Eastern Washington, but right now I think it's hard to say that anyone is better than them in the conference.
I really appreciate that you said it's like this collective effort as a defense, because Troy Anderson, Ty Okada, Daniel Hardy, they're gonna get the publicity. But it's the Chase Bensons, the Brody Greavies, the Trey Webbs, the Jeff Mannings that they're just complimenting the whole thing just has this awesome synergy. And one thing I really like about the Bobcat defense right now is they're just playing so fast. Freddie Banks' system, they just said it was simple. They just want the guys to know where they're going and play fast. And man, they are just killing it right now. They are hitting hard. They're getting to their gaps, and they're so much fun to watch. I just absolutely love watching the defense. To keep this thing going, I want to mention my good that I want to talk about before we get into maybe the okays and if we have any uglies at that point. Montana State went into Ogden. We haven't won in Weber since 2013. Holy cow, that's just been a monkey that we got off our back. But Weber had a week to prepare for us. They were a desperate team. We had Colby Peterson on the show earlier on this week. He called they were desperate to win. They were trying to salvage their season, and it was their homecoming. And you know what? The Bobcats out-Webered. We matched them physically, which was a key to the win in my perspective. And I couldn't be happier for the Cats, because that's just a different thing than we've kind of, I don't know, Shane, if you would agree with me on this, but in big games underneath the lights, Montana State hasn't really risen to that occasion often, but they did. Even with 13 points, we still won. We still won.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of fans coming away from that game, the first and one of the biggest impressions is, oh my gosh, our offense struggled so much, and they did. And I don't want to act like they didn't, but I think that I think that what you've just done is taken a step back from that, and I think that that's important. You have to recognize, yeah, they had a tough time. They also were going up against a team that had an extra week to scheme for them and an extra day, right? They were 1 day short, and the other team was a week ahead or whatever,
Well, not to mention, too, there's still Weber. Weber has
Yeah.
a tough defense no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
when go ahead. You're doing fine.
People may not be paying close attention, but Troy Taylor said last week, he said 2 different times. One time he said, this is the healthiest we've been since the spring. But the other time he said, this is the healthiest we've been since February. And so we're talking about, and if you've been watching Weber, some of us have been watching the Weber games. They did not look like they looked Friday night, last night. They didn't look like that in the other games. They just were not. Things were not clicking for them, but they looked really good in that game. And for the Bobcats to go in to struggle, to have a lot to clean up and improve upon, and come out with a win against the defending conference champions at their home on a short week, it's actually a tremendous. I mean, look at it in the context of the other football games that happened this weekend. Winning is not easy. It's not easy in conference, and it's not easy away. So you have to just take the wins where you will or where you can. Winning ugly is winning.
All right, man. I totally agree. And we're going to talk about the offense here in a little bit, but I want to stay in the good. I want to lean into the good a little bit more because one of the unsung heroes tonight was a guy that I haven't been totally impressed with this season, and that's our punter, Bryce Layton. I thought he did a phenomenal job of mitigating the deadliness of Rashid Shaheed. Whether that was putting a little bit more loft into the punts, albeit not as long, but allowed our coverage to get there, directionally punting. Man, Montana State did a phenomenal job of limiting Rashid Shaheed. And hey, if we're talking about special teams, Stones Glessner, right? 2 for 2. We talked about that early on. I think he had a 46-yarder right down the pipes and a 32-yarder right down the pipes. That guy's been money all season long. But yeah, I want to give props to Bryce and Blake because special teams just did phenomenal job because Rashid Shaheed, he's the real deal. Behind Malik Flowers in the nation, kind of like 2 of the best return guys in the nation right here in the Big Sky. Holy cow. It was a non-factor in the game, so kudos to those guys.
Yeah, and in fact, I would say the Montana State won the special teams game in a game where you would expect to not win that game because Shaheed is such a weapon. Because you get 6 points off of special teams and they get none, you've won. And I think that's huge. I think you also have to give a lot of credit to the cover team and include a guy like Tommy Malott who just gets down in coverage the way that Campbell used to do before he got moved to the defense.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right. Are you ready to move on to maybe we say the good, the bad, and the ugly? I'm going to call this the okays.
Yeah.
So I have an okay that I it's kind of cheeky, and I wanted to put it out there. So Daniel Hardy caused an awesome fumble. I think it was McMillan. Their running back came in, just uppercutted him, popped the ball up like a pop fly. Troy Anderson caught it, and I was like, Troy's going to take off. He's going to scamper. I mean, there was one Weber defender around, and that Weber defender, he got him. I was like, this is like tailor-made for a Troy 50-yard scamper, and that's my.
I know. I was like, Troy, you've pulled your foot out of your shoe before to get out of these. Come on, man. You had that shoelace and you wouldn't let go.
Yeah, so that was.
I definitely thought that was 7 right there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think you have to, if you want to put something in the bad, you have to look at the offense and just say, okay, this is what I think happened. So I think this is bad, but I also want to put it in context. I think there's some other teams in the conference that get the benefit of a lot of context, right? Some might even call it spin, but the offense struggled. I think what was happening, and this is speculation to a degree, but I think that they thought they might be able to wear down the Weber defensive line. And to Weber's credit, they did not wear down. And I think there came a point in the game where you have the lead and you're starting your oh, geez. You're starting out at your own 20. You're starting your drives at your own end, and there comes a point where that if you throw an interception, or if you get out in space and someone gets that ball, causes a fumble, that could be the game. That they will win if you give it to them. And so there comes a point where you say, our defense is just playing so well. If we just try to milk a little bit of clock and we can trust our defense, then we'll win. And we did win. So you're like, oh, do you really want to do that? Well, like it or not, that won the football game. So the offense didn't look great when they're hammering the middle, and the middle just doesn't budge. And it's hard when you see a guy like Isaiah Fonte, where you're like, I know that guy can do it, but they're just meeting you with that same physicality and that same level of effort and want to. What can you do but say, all right, let's try to meet them on the other side of the football and do the same thing. Since we've got the lead, we'll just hang on to it, puppy guard the lead, and get out of here with it. So I put it in the bad category, but I also think it should be couched in some, context.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a talking point all week long is why? Why did Montana State struggle so much? Why were we running up the middle consistently and not pressing the edges? Because Weber was putting all 8 of their front 8 right there, and they were crashing the gaps. They knew the formations we were running. So that's, I like your take on that. That is one way to look at it. The pessimist would say, oh, Taylor Housewright was just running it in the middle. He has no clue. But you know what? Montana State has had a different offensive approach every game. We haven't been very predictable. And I like that about Taylor Housewright. I think we've showcased different players, different schemes, different play sets throughout each game. And this one had the quick take was very like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? But when you sit and you look back, I remember you sent me the video today, and I watched the game again. I thought I just give credit to Weber. Weber was playing a tremendous defense. They were playing man on the outside with a single safety on the top. And you know what? If Montana wasn't going to press the edges and try to soften that box, then you know what? We were going to get stopped. And so kudos to Weber because they're the tough-nosed team. All right.
Oh, yeah,
hey, let's keep this thing moving. Any other bads before we get into any of the uglies?
No more bads for me.
Okay. One for me was our Weber's starting field position. Weber beat us in the field position battle all night long. We had, I think even in the first quarter, I don't feel like Weber, I mean, I don't have the statistics here, but it felt like they were right around the 50-ish starting out on their drives there. Kudos to the Montana State Bobcats. Again, their defense held, but Weber's definitely won the position field battle this game. And that was something that, our offense, I think you could put that on the shoulders of our offense for not moving the ball down the field. So that was really kind of bad. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. So I was going to say, also consider that our offense took their starting field position and 2 extra times went down the field close enough to get a field goal where their offense didn't do. So, it does cut both ways a little bit, but yeah, I think you do have to lay some of that on the offense, but they also shined enough. I mean, 13 points isn't shining brightly, but they shined enough to do what they needed to do to get the win.
Shane, did you think the Montana State offense would score more in this game?
Yeah, I thought they'd score a lot more, to be totally honest. Weber looked so much better than they had in their other games.
Yeah, I mean, they were playing for a lot. It was their homecoming. Like they said, they were a desperate team. They knew what was on the line. And now, a 4-time defending conference champ is knocked off, and now they're fighting for their lives. They could win out. Did they have to play Weber next week or the week after? One of the two, I can't remember. Eastern, excuse me, yeah. And it doesn't look good for Weber right now. And so, when you're playing a hungry and desperate team, that's a dangerous place to be. So
Yeah.
I'm that's one of the things I'm really impressed about the Bobcats. Okay, uglies for me. I just put the lack of diversity in the run game. And I don't, like you said, that might have been by design. We might have been just holding it close to the vest. That's something that we could consider. Afonso up the middle. And another thing I would say about that is I really wish we would get into the stable of our running backs a little bit more. Jeff Choate's regime did that way better. I think Afonso had like 25 carries or something like that in this game. I think that's just too much. It's just going to wear him down. Elliott didn't have nearly as many carries. We're not seeing Sumner. We're not seeing Hosey. I love Hosey. I think when he touches the ball, that guy just has a different gear. Lane Sumner, a very slippery back, kind of like Josh Davis. I mean, I'm not comparing him to Josh Davis. Josh Davis is an All-American. But, a guy that can squirt through a hole and get some yards for you. Often Afonso is just a dog, no doubt, and he is an all-time great already as a junior. But I don't know if that's Jimmy Beal's call, if that's Housewright's call, if that's Vegan's call. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, do you feel like we're using Tommy Millott enough?
Well, I would have. He had that 120-yard run. I would have liked to seen him in the second quarter a little bit more. He definitely provides a different look and a different energy. So, are we using him enough? To be seen. I don't know the answer to that question. Would I have liked to seen him in Weber a little bit more? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I do think. I'm with you on Hosey. Like he's really an exciting back to watch. Lane Sumner, they've been getting him in there a little bit, and he maybe still has to knock some rust off. I've seen him struggle a little when they've put him in there, but I think he will. I think he'll be there. He might. I wonder if he's a little rusty, but I would like to see a little more diversity. I think it. We are a little bit spoiled. We're coming off of a team that had the most run diversity of maybe any team in college football. So you're like, there's a lot. We went from like all the diversity to very little, so there's a big gap there. But yeah, I do tend to like the what's his name? He used to play for the Seahawks and he ate Skittles and
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, he would say run through a guy's face, that whole saying. I like the run through a guy's face enough times thing. And that's why I'm not like super negative about runs up the middle with a guy like Afonso, because I think that does wear a lot of people out. I don't think it wore out Weber, and maybe that's partly how what their personnel package was in there, how many people they had there in the box, that kind of stuff. But especially when you have guys that can attack the edges like a Hosey could or something like that, I think it would be nice to see that.
Yeah, I'd like to see Montana State attack the edges a little bit more. We had such success running the fly sweep in 2019. I just don't think haven't had the personnel to run it like we've had in the past. Logan Jones was such a special player in that he just was able to find that hole and just turn it upfield so fast. Willie Patterson is not that quite player. Charles Brown hasn't had the touches. Elijah Elliott's been awesome, but we haven't really seen him go to the outside on that play quite often. Anyways, yeah. So, I mean, Idaho State's coming in town. I guarantee you we're going to see some improvement in the offense. I know Coach Vegan was talking about that in the post-game presser, that we need to get better in offense. I'm sure that's going to be a focus on this quote-unquote long week as we had Saturday off. But any parting thoughts before we get out of here, Shane?
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to touch on what would have landed in the ugly category. I don't like to think of it as ugly, but I'll say I was a little bit dismayed in the post-game press conference when I was listening to Daniel Hardy talk about after the first Weber State touchdown, how he just said that there weren't many adjustments made and they just kind of circled the wagons. And you did say something that Okada had recognized some unbalanced sets and stuff like that. Maybe they were identifying something schematic that they corrected. And I hope that was the case, because I actually think it's a problem when you're just like, yeah, we just weren't trying hard enough, and then we started trying harder. You know what I mean? Like that's how you end up with like one of these types of drives in every game. And it's like they could be that much better if they were somehow able to get themselves at the right level of effort and energy right from the beginning.
So who do you believe? Do you believe Daniel Hardy or Ty Okada? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to believe Ty Okada, because when you watch Daniel Hardy give his post-game presser, the guy is all energy for sure. But Okada comes off more collective. Like he's just like more cerebral. Like he's able to think on the spot and give you a better answer. Maybe I just want to believe him. But I also think I also believe him. Like when he said we made adjustments after the first drive, I'm going to believe him. And maybe Daniel was just putting up something like, oh, we had it. We just needed to circle the wagons. Like we knew what was going on. I don't know. Maybe I'm just conjecturing right now, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's a little take on that.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Okada is in a position where he needs to understand the schematics more, and Hardy, he's in a position that's driven a little bit more by just technique and go, rather than when you're in the back, you're in like a linebacker or safety kind of a role. You have to understand the whole scene a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think Okada had more insight. In fact, if the defensive backs, they might have been the only ones who made the adjustment. So you know what I mean? Hardy may not have been privy to the adjustment.
Can we just lobby for Ty Okada to be on every post-game presser?
Oh my gosh, dude, I was so jacked listening to that. He's like, no, we knew who the new sheriffs in town were. They were like, were you worried about coming in against this dude? He's like, no, we knew there's a new sheriff in town. It was like, oh my gosh. The whole thing, like you said, he was just so salty and just full of vim.
Oh man, he said, yeah, we weren't surprised at all. We knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Just completely dismissive. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's just some swag right there. I love it. All right.
That totally reminds me of 2019, the post game with the kid from Belgrade. Gosh, why am I so terrible? Conkle, and he's like, "We seen the tape." I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
We knew we were gonna beat them.
Yeah, we knew we were gonna beat them by that much. You're like, his answer was, "We seen the tape." Like nobody knew you were gonna beat them like that, But that confidence is just, it's infectious.
All right. Well, Shane, I think we're going to wrap this up. This is our quick take episode. Hey, man, thanks for coming on, and thanks just for being you. We miss you around Bozeman and all your awesome video edits that you put down in the Bobcat Outsider. That was, you had some great content, and maybe someday again. But I just want to say thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and I actually really appreciate the opportunity to come on and just talk some Bobcat football. I love doing this stuff, so obviously anytime you want to have me on, I'm more than game.
All right. Well, I'm going to do my best Thorny impression right now. You can find us, if you want to follow us, you can find us at rrcatcast.com. You can find us on our Twitter handle at rrcatcast. Thorny always asks us to give us a review and like. I don't know what really that means, but do it anyways. And then, Shane, we're going to get out of here with a Go Cats. Can I get a Go Cats from you?
Go Cats.
Go Cats.